fabric, the tapestry, that makes Universal Studios Hollywood a living, breathing production facility. Because get this, I'm guessing some of you have been to Universal Studios Orlando, some of you may have been to Universal Studios Japan, and in both cases, they got way more rides than we do here. But never forget, Universal Studios Hollywood is the only Universal Studios in the entire world that actually has a studios. We are the foundation, the bedrock, the OG, from which the entire Universal brand comes from. And though you may associate us as a mecca of movie making, we are just as well renowned for our history of television production. Welcome to TV Alley. The sound stages on your right have been home to some of the most iconic television shows ever, like All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Murder, She Wrote, Golden Girls, as well as recent hits like Hacks, Homecoming, Good Girls, and The Good Place. Now, believe it or not, especially considering we're in the age of streaming, with the countless hours of content spread across the ever-expanding array of streaming services, which we will never fully consume in our natural-born lifetimes, consider the fact that in the early days of TV, movie studios hated it. They didn't think it was an art form at all, and they thought it was a child's plaything, and so they did not allow television production on their studio lots, except for Universal. Curiously, Universal was the only major movie studio in those early days to embrace television production, and we've continued in that tradition to this day. And when you talk about a TV show, a commercial, a music video, and of course, a movie, you can break any of those down into three phases of production: pre-production, production, and post-production. And a lot of that pre- and post-production work is office work, which takes place in these buildings on your left. These production bungalows, where some of the biggest names in Hollywood get all the nuts and bolts together before they step onto set, and then once everything is shot on location, they come back here to package it all up and get it out to you, the general public. But in the golden age of Hollywood, like in Bungalow 5195, you may see the familiar visage of Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock, as well as other luminaries like Elizabeth Taylor, Jimmy Stewart, Paul Newman, Marilyn Monroe, they all lived inside of these bungalows as apartments, which were given to them by the studio while they were under contract making movies for Universal, which meant they could get up in the morning, get their coffee, mosey on over to whichever soundstage they were needed in for the day, beating all that LA traffic in the process. Quite the fringe benefit then, as it is now. And with that, folks, we are rounding out of the front lot, and we are now entering the world-famous Universal Studios back lot. Specifically, we're going to pass by our metro sets here. Now, no doubt you've probably seen these buildings, these city streets, across your favorite films, television shows, countless commercials and music videos. Now, they're doing some prep work in there tonight, so we aren't able to go inside of our metro sets, but if you look to your left, you're going to get a quick glimpse at our New York street. Oftentimes, when you see New York on film, it was probably shot right there on our New York street. And all of that brick and mortar you see is actually wood, foam rubber, and fiberglass. You know, we like to build things on the cheap here. It's very costly to produce anything in this town. Now, I've been name dropping a lot on the tour, which, I apologize. We've just worked with so many great names over the years, it's kind of hard not to throughout this tour. Now, a name I did drop earlier, which you may have caught, is an Academy Award-winning filmmaker from New Zealand. He's got a soft spot for hobbits, giant hairy apes, and in this tour guide's humble opinion, recently released a masterpiece with Get Back, the Beatles docuseries on Disney+, which, even if you're not a fan of the Beatles, if you're a fan of music, the creative process, friendship, or life itself, it's an 8-hour commitment spread out over 3 episodes, but to quote A. Jude, remember to let it into your heart, then you can start to make it better. I'm, of course, talking about Sir Peter Jackson.
It's the original King Kong that made me want to direct movies. I saw that movie on TV when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I wanted to become a filmmaker.
Cool story, Peter. Now, folks, get those 3D glasses on because we are now officially entering Skull Island.
on, everybody. We're back in Skull Island.
Go away.
All hail King Kong 360
Scared about King Kong. There is nothing scary about King Kong.
stuff. Now go ahead and put those 3D glasses off to the side. You will not need them for any other part of the tour until the very end. But for now, King Kong 360 3D is actually one of the most advanced ride systems in the entire world. It was projected on some of the world's largest digital 3D screens, 40 feet tall, 180 feet long, and was developed by the geniuses at Weta Digital, the New Zealand-based effects company co-founded by Peter Jackson. They've won over 5 Academy Awards and have worked on films like King Kong, obviously, Avatars, the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies, and many, many Marvel films. Isn't that right, Your Majesty? I thought so.
With a project like the studio tour, the audience is in the middle of the environment. They're looking in all directions. There's creatures coming at them. They're seeing Kong from this side and T-Rexes from the other side.
Working on a movie, we always know where people are looking. They're looking straight ahead. They're looking at the shot that we're working on.
Here you have to take into account that people are looking in all directions.
Also, one of the things about this ride, unlike the movies that we're used to working on, there's no cuts because it's one giant shot. This tram that's driving along through Skull Island is where the camera's from. This ring represents where the screen is 10 meters away.
We're really creating about 50 minutes of a feature film. That amount of visual information, that number of pixels, and presenting them to the audience, it's a hell of a ride.
So cool.
Hell of a ride indeed. Now you may have noticed during the ride that we lost one of our tram cars. You know, the 5th tram car that you probably missed, but was totally there the entire time, which actually had Peter Jackson, his family, and other members of the Weta Digital team animated inside of it. So wherever they ended up in the jungles of Skull Island, I think they'll be just fine. Point is, anytime you see a vehicle on screen, it's what we call a picture car. And here we got some picture cars for you. From American Graffiti, we got the 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe belonging to the character John Milner. We got Magnum PI's
Back to the
Ferrari.
Future.
Some personal favorites, Biff's 1946 Ford convertible from Back to the Future, as well as a few selections from the distant future of 2015. That's from Back to the Future Part 2 from 1989. Taking things back to the Stone Age, we got a few from the live-action Flintstones movie.
Wow.
The Ford Anglia from Harry Potter.
Harry
the
Potter.
Nissan Skyline from Too Fast to Furious, which has got to
heck
be
yeah.
the greatest sequel title of all time. We got a
Alice in the
couple
Lost
from the
World.
Jurassic franchise, a couple from the Jordan Peele verse. We got the Fry's Electronics van from Nope and the Crawdaddy boat from Us. And at the very end, we got a few from the first Transformers movie. Now, the gyrosphere
Nice.
from Jurassic World, you may have noticed, is missing its glass casing, but that's because they added that in later, using CGI or computer generated imagery. Now, Jurassic World is Universal's highest grossing film of all time. That's $1 billion earner, folks. But I would be remiss not to talk about the 1993 Steven Spielberg directed masterpiece and inarguably superior film that started it all.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
That's right, folks.
My favorite film.
Jurassic Park.
That was 1993?
Yeah. Oh
Now
my
these
God,
are the
that's in
mobile
Lost
labs on
World.
our left. They're from the Lost World Jurassic Park, and it looks like they're having some kind of party in there. Thanks for the invite, guys. Don't you think I like partying with some dinosaurs? Sheesh. We got some dino cages from Jurassic Park 3 on the right-hand side of the tram. And folks, I forgot to mention, look out for either side of the tram for some featured extras who never got the memo about filming Happy Crap.
Ooh.
Here, brother. Now the mobile labs that I pointed out, we actually dangled one of those off of one of our parking structures in the front lot to achieve one of the more harrowing sequences from the sequel of Jurassic Park, The Lost World. Check this out.
Ow.
Whoa, ay caramba, after all that dino action, I could certainly use a break. A siesta, you might even say. And wouldn't you know it, we'll get just that as we roll on into our old Mexico set here at the tail end of what has been a, currently cloudy, mostly sunny Southern California day here in Universal City. And as we enter the evening time here, I must say that it seems like we're having a most wonderful evening, because from where I'm sitting, there's not a cloud in the sky, although as I say that, I hear thunder and I'm seeing lightning flashes. And for any Fleetwood Mac fans on the tour, you know, Stevie Nicks has always said, thunder only happens when it's raining.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. She was totally right about that. Does that mean players only love you when they're playing? Probably. At any rate, I think if we just play it cool, chill out, everything will be just fine, because I do not think it will get any worse than this. Okay, well, even if it did get worse than this, I don't think Tram Cars 2 or 3 have anything to worry about. For example, or por ejemplo, because we're in old Mexico, if I were in Tram Cars 2 or 3, I wouldn't wish that I brought a towel with me. You might be thinking that.
Oh my God.
But I don't think it'll get any worse than no. Hey,
What the?
Stevie Nicks, she knows. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our Flash Flood. That effect was created using thousands of gallons of recycled water, pumped and collected in tanks at the top of the hill, sent rushing down for your enjoyment. And of course, that song was Dreams, written by Stevie Nicks, recorded by Fleetwood Mac, and performed by yours truly. Speaking of Fleetwood Mac, rest in peace to Christine McVie, who passed away a few weeks ago. Now, on this left-hand side of the tram, you may recognize this set from the very beginning of the classic comedy Three Amigos, but it was also used by singer-songwriter Stephanie Germanotta for her Judas music video. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, my bad. Lady Gaga. Big fan.
Lady Gaga.
Big fan. Now, speaking of Gaga, folks, we are truly on the edge of glory as we cross the Rio Grande from Old Mexico and enter the Old West of 6 Points, Texas. Simply put, this isn't only one of the oldest, most historically significant areas of Universal, but all of Hollywood.
Hey, Dad, did they use this part in Back to the Future 3?
No, maybe that's what they did. Yeah.
The Good, the Bad, and Ugly.
Here's such icons as John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Clint Eastwood, Kirk Douglas, Robert Redford, and many more have sported their 6-shooter spurs, riding the horses, all the standoffs, and the salutes. A of 6 Points, Texas. And this place represents the foundation for what would eventually become the Universal Studios Tour. Because in the early days of our studio, our founder, Carl Lemley, would charge people 25 cents admission to the studio lot, and you could sit, eat your lunch, and watch movies being made right in front of your eyes. And because it was in the days before sound had been invented for movies, people cheered the heroes, booed the villains, really gave the actors lots to work off of. Obviously, when sound entered the picture, they had to end that practice, but we continue in that tradition of giving you a little peek behind the curtain with this here tour. And you can actually see 6 Points, Texas most recently in Quentin Tarantino's 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, at about the halfway point of the film, to be exact. Speaking of halfway points, we are at the halfway point of the tour, so thank you for remaining seated with your arms and legs inside the tram at all times. We got a bit more to cover though, such as, if you look to your left, this nice little body of water. Now that is what we call Park Lake, also known as the Hollywood Ocean, because of how often it's been used in film and television as the ocean. Heck, some of you might even know it as the location of the Black Lagoon.
The creature from the Black Lagoon.
Belonging to a creature from the Black Lagoon. That's the 1954 Universal Monster Classic. And even though Halloween spooky season is in our rearview mirror for 2022, year-round and always, we must always acknowledge the fact that Universal is basically credited with inventing the horror movie genre, with films like Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Wolfman, The Invisible Man, The Mummy, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Phantom of the Opera. The list goes on and on. In this area of the lot, Little Europe features prominently into the history of those films. You see, our founder, Carl Lemley, was a German immigrant. He was homesick, and he wanted to build an area that reminded him of home. So he built Little Europe. Consequently, it became home to many an angry villager sporting pitchforks and torches, chasing after creatures who, let's be honest, just wanted some love, acceptance, and for somebody to tell them that everything was good. Speaking of good, some of you might even recognize this as the Good Place.
You, Eleanor Shellstrop, are dead.
Cool.
This location, the afterlife, come on. I've never ever seen this. You're in the good place.
I'm not supposed to be here. I can't risk going to the bad place.
Well, maybe it's not all that bad.
How can I help you?
What is the bad place like?
Well, it doesn't sound awesome.
And here are those aforementioned angry villagers for context.
Listen now, Lamont. He's in the woods. Get out the back house. Raise all the men you can, lock the women indoors, and wait for me. Are you ready? Go! Your torches and go!
When we think of Universal, we think of monsters.
Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Bride of Frankenstein,
The Mummy,
The Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera. Classic films. They're just brilliantly made.
That Frankenstein image, flathead, bald, it's one of the great icons of the world.
That to me was like the essence of the Universal horror film. I was just mesmerized by these movies. Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney.
I remember the original Universal Studios Mummy movie really scaring me.
They still ring in our memories now, and we love them.
All right, folks, so I don't want to say anything, but it looks like Garrett has officially been granted access to a hot set. A hot set is any set currently being used for filming. Because it's the holiday hiatus, productions are on break right now. We have been able to have access right now to an literal soundstage that is in the middle of production. So your guess is as good as mine about what we'll see, but oh my gosh, if you look there to your left, look at that. That looks like a camera with film. Now, a lot of productions shoot digitally nowadays, so to see actual film stock is pretty cool. So it looks like this is some kind of subway metro stop set. Okay, it says welcome to San Francisco, so maybe it's for BART, for any of you Bay Area friends out there. Oh look, they even have Crafty, that's craft services. You know, you work up quite an appetite being on set all day. You know, how hard it is between different setups, getting your marks and such. Looks like they have apples, bananas. Are those muffins? Man, I could go for a muffin! hey, at least none of us got wet. Never mind.
Okay. Oh shit.
Congratulations, folks. You just survived the earthquake, the big one. Named after the 1975 film of the same name. It's a prime example of what we call in-camera practical effects as opposed to CGI. And it's so good that some productions actually use that attraction from time to time. The show Bones did not too long ago. Check this out. What's going on?
So that was the scene. Oh wow.
Oof. Dinosaurs, flash floods, and earthquakes. Oh my, could I use a vacation? I mean, come on, the year is coming to an end. It's been a long one for all of us. I'm just looking for some kind of reprieve. I just want to chill out. I just want to, wait a minute. I know where we could go. How about Amity Island? Now, I know what many of you might be thinking, but Ryan, Amity Island, don't they have a great white shark problem? And actually, yes, to be fully transparent with you, they did have a great white shark problem. Back in the mid-1970s, several people died, including at least one child or whatever. It was actually kind of bad. But you know what? That's all in the past. My good friend George is a diver for the Amity Police Department. Oh, look, there's this little boat. Anyways, George called me before the tour and assured me that there were absolutely no sharks. Okay, that is a literal shark fin coming through the mist. Give me a second. George, get out of the water. There's a shark. Oh, this is not looking good for George, folks. You know, he is such a nice guy. He and his wife just had a kid. Being a diver, heck, being a father, really takes a lot of guts. And there they are.
Oh, George.
Well, okay, I guess I just lost my friend George. But hey, we've all gained these barrels of gasoline.
That was a good movie.
Now the light is a bit dim, but I have a feeling, folks, if you look right behind you, you're going to see the only shark in the world capable of performing the backstroke. Look at him go. Good boy, Bruce. Hey, at least that shark works. Speaking of which, Jaws. Now, film is subjective, art is subjective, but it is an objective fact that Jaws is one of the greatest films in the history of cinema. Also a fact, it had one of the worst making of experiences in the history of cinema. So, here's the deal. 27-year-old Steven Spielberg, let me repeat that, he was 27 when he made Jaws. It was his second major studio picture, and on the first day of filming, the shark sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And things only got worse from there. You see, they were filming out on the open ocean, which is not a common or recommended practice, because the constant shifting of the tide and the horizon line made continuity of shots and the editing process a nightmare, but also the cast and crew were getting seasick left and right. It was a disaster from day one, and yet Jaws has a very happy and extremely lucrative ending. But here's Steven Spielberg and other members of the cast to tell you just how bad it got.
That's a much maligned shark. The shark was frustrating. It didn't really work all the time. It really worked hardly at all. Wherever you were, like, here the radio, they were always saying, back at the back.
We just waited around. We just waited.
The shark were grow enough, for a while they were enemies the whole time. So I really owe the shark a lot.
Yeah, he seriously does owe that shark a lot. Arguably his entire career. Now, even though the making of Jaws nearly broke young Steven Spielberg as both a filmmaker and as a human being, we celebrated Jaws' 47th anniversary this summer. In nearly 50 years, half a century since it came out, Jaws is bigger than ever. It's become one of the rarest of beasts in Hollywood, a bona fide international pop cultural phenomenon. But it almost didn't happen. As you saw in the video clip, the shark wasn't working. However, what that did was light a fire under young Steven Spielberg, a spark of early genius that we would see time and time again over the next 40 years began with Jaws, because he used that limitation to his advantage. So if you've seen Jaws, you don't see the shark for over half the movie. That's not a spoiler, it's just the case, you don't see it for over half the movie. But if you haven't seen Jaws, either way, the fact that you don't see the shark, that was a very innovative thing for a monster or a scary movie back then, because what it did was psychologically put you into the mind frame of the people being terrorized on Amity Island, allowing your imagination to fill in the blanks. And oftentimes, that is scarier than actually seeing the monster or the shark itself. Also, John Williams, his iconically creepy score, really helped heighten that sense of tension, as did Verna Fields. She's an unsung hero in the history of filmmaking, one of the greatest of all film editors, a real trailblazer in the industry. She helped the young Spielberg piece it all together, help it make sense, give it heft, and together they crafted a film which has scared generations of swimmers from going into the ocean for fear that a shark will get them. Forget ocean, we're talking dark pools or lakes, not talking about myself, of course. And it was the highest grossing film of all time until Steven Spielberg's best friend George Lucas released a little independent film called Star Wars 2 years later. Don't worry if you've never heard of that one. It's pretty obscure. Now, speaking of obscure, we got some obscure picture cars here for you. We got Mr. Bean's Lime Green Mini Cooper. Remember that one? We got the double-decker bus from Austin Powers and The Spy Who Shagged Me. Ooh, rather iconic. We also have the Smythe's Cano Service truck from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I do love that one, the Coen Brothers classic. And we got a few more souped-up rods from the Fast and Furious franchise, of course. But folks, that really pales in comparison to what we're rounding the corner into now. One of the oldest and most notorious sets still standing in Hollywood, the Bates Motel from Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 thriller landmark masterpiece, Psycho.
They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Now, as we leave one disaster area, we are about to enter another. This is the plane crash from Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
I remember that movie. That was a good movie.
Wondering, yes, that is actually a real Boeing 747 airplane on the left-hand side of the tramp, which used to fly thousands of feet above us in the skies before it was decommissioned and bought by the production for $60,000. But get this, it took a week as well as an estimated $250,000 to ship it, less than 100 miles away from an Air Force base in the Mojave Desert. Now here is longtime Spielberg collaborator, production designer Rick Carter, and old Spielby himself to tell you a bit more about it.
The airplane crash site set is a perfect example of a set that is all designed around a vision that Steven had.
And for, again, to sit down to talk about War of the Worlds, I thought, what if the 747 goes down right in a big neighborhood? Because it's just something you don't see.
You're doing good. You're doing great. Keep pressing me. Listen, I want you to close your eyes, okay? Get them closed.
I've seen the world of worlds.
Robbie, get in. Get in.
And with that, we have reached the 15-minute home stretch of the tour, so thank you once again for remaining seated with your arms and legs inside the tram at all times. Thus concludes the third and final time I am actually legally obligated to remind you of that. But you know, you've been so wonderful in that regard, I got a couple more surprises for you. Now, we are no stranger to cinematic genius here at Universal. Alfred Hitchcock, Steven Spielberg, Verna Fields, who I mentioned. And in that pantheon of greatness, we believe, is Academy Award-winning writer-director Jordan Peele, here to tell you about his new film, Nope.
Movie magic only happens when a team of collaborators, often in the hundreds, work together to take an impossible notion and bring it to life. This is Jupiter's Claim, a nostalgic, small-time Southern California amusement park owned by former child star Ricky Jupe Park. Over there, look into the winking well and have your picture taken just like the kids in that old 90s movie Kid Show. That's what this whole place is loosely based on. Remember that one? No? Well, a little further down, you can see the brand new Star Lasso experience, built to showcase an unbelievable new live show. Not looking so live anymore. Anyway, behind this Hollywood fantasy, old rough frontier town lies a sinister secret. It is smack dab in the center of the UFO hotspot. What's a bad miracle? You're about to find out. Welcome to the world.
That's right. Happy train.
Now, I'm sure many of you have been fans of Jordan Peele since the humble beginnings on his Comedy Central sketch show Key and Peele with his comedy partner Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah.
But he has seen quite the meteoric rise since the release of his 2017 film
I know what's coming.
Get Out, which of course won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. He then followed that up with Us, an equally, if not even more challenging social satire than Get Out. And Nope is just another highly